everyone, this is Melissa, teaching artist and art therapist at Project Create. Project Create is a nonprofit organization located in Washington, D.C. that serves children, youth, and families and provides free art education and enrichment classes. I'm excited to share with you another art project today from the comfort of my home. Today we are going to be doing a family portrait, but instead of a traditional family portrait, we will be creating a family garden. So instead of just using faces, we will be using different plants, animals, and so forth to represent family members. So what you are going to need for this art project today are several things. Some magazines with different pictures of nature, and I cut out lots of different pictures I found in magazines of flowers, of beautiful mountains, trees, a few animals, just some different backgrounds for inspiration today. You might also want to go outside and take a walk and maybe look for different plant life that you might include in your family garden collage. You are also going to need a plain piece of paper of any size, depending on how big you want your collage to be, a pair of scissors, a brush, and some kind of adhesive. So I have modpodge, but you could also use any other kind of glue, a glue stick or any kind of elmers glue would work fine as well. So to get started, after you've gathered a bunch of different pictures of different flowers and different animals and other type of things like that, you might want to think about who you want to represent in your family garden. Do you want to just focus on the people in your household? Or maybe you want to think about your extended family. This could be grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, maybe other people in your life who are very close, like family, maybe a close friend, maybe a godparent or a step-parent or an in-law. You can think of anybody and include this in your collage. You also might want to consider, as a family, maybe working on one collage together and creating the background together as a family, and then choosing a particular flower or animal that represents you, and then adding that together in the collage. Or maybe each family member makes their own family garden to represent the family, and it might be fun at the end to share with one another how you see one another and how you see the family interacting and what that represents. So we'll go ahead and get started. I always like to start my collages by thinking about what I'd like to put in the background. So I have a couple pictures here that are a bit bigger. I have this picture here of a path, and I like to just start it by laying pictures down on the page and try to get an idea of what I want to do before I actually start gluing. So I have this cutout of a house, I have mountain scene, I have this other scene with some trees. I have this small waterfall. I have some animals here. So I think this is coming together pretty nicely. That might be a good place to start. And as you're working with the different images, you can start to think about, now, who might be represented in these different images? So maybe with the trees, maybe there's someone in your family that's really grounded, that's really established, that is deeply rooted, who is wise and strong. Maybe there's a family member that comes to mind. I look at this little chipmunk here, and when I think about chipmunks, I see them as very busy and always running around and gathering things. Maybe there's a family member who is similar to a chipmunk. Maybe they're busy and they gather and they organize and they're prepared. I'm even looking at a picture of this waterfall here on this, right in the center. So maybe that could be someone in your family who's very calm, or maybe someone who brings, support and nurture. Maybe like water comes and it helps things grow. So it's really up to you how you see these pictures. Again, there's no right and wrong. I say that all the time. There's really no right and wrong. It's about how you look at the picture and what it reminds you of. When I look at this picture, I automatically think of my grandmother because she loved this type of flower, and I remember seeing it in her yard. So maybe it's just related to something that that person liked, or their favorite color that comes to mind, and that might represent that person in your family. So let's go ahead and start getting some of these pictures down. I'm going to be working with a Mod Podge, and I have a little bit of a bigger brush, which I find really helpful when you're working with really big images. I'm going to give that a layer. And sometimes a Mod Podge can have a really strong smell. So if it bothers you, you can always dilute it a little bit with some water and put it in a smaller container. And I'm just smoothing out the image and getting out any of the little air bubbles that I'm seeing. I'm going to keep adding larger pictures to create the background. Sometimes when I work on collages that are symbolic of different things or of different people, I don't always have all the answers when I start. I just start to choose the images that I like or just seem to speak to me in some way, somehow, and I just start layering them and putting them down. And then as I develop the image, the person that it represents kind of comes to mind. So you might find that just going with this process works for you, like that. And it becomes clear as you go. And then as you go, you might find that there are two images that represent two different family members, maybe two kinds of flowers or two kinds of animals. And I'm looking at this one right here, the birds. Maybe there's, and I have another picture of birds right here. Maybe these might represent parents or brothers and sisters. And maybe because they're still at home and they're young and they live close together, you might even consider putting family members that are particularly close or related closer together. So it could be important to think about the relationships in terms of how close or how far apart. As I'm working on this, I'm even noticing a little bit of a story. Like there's a path right here that I imagine leading over here to the garden, and here's a house and a field, and I'm imagining maybe this is where the garden exists. So maybe your collage will tell a little bit of a story like that. Maybe the garden is a place where all the family members come together and interact. I have a bunch of single flowers here, and I even imagined that these single flowers could be different people in my family. For example, I have this very bright flower. I was looking for this particular one right here with a little bit of orange. And you know, that immediately I thought about my brother, who's very creative and very interested in a lot of different things and excels in those things. And that bright flower with that burst of orange in between just spoke to me as being my brother. And then I have another brother, this orange one right here. They're kind of the same color, but they're different. He's really outgoing. He will try a lot of extreme things, extreme sports. So I thought these two might go together as my brothers. A little different, but a little bit of a similar color. So we're part of the same family. So I might put them together. So you can play around with that, doing a singular elements. You might also think about like the background. Maybe the background, like I mentioned the trees before, but I see mountains in the background. So maybe, is there somebody in the family that is like a mountain who kind of watches over the family and supports the family and maybe is wise? Maybe they're like a mountain like that. And I took a walk today, so I have these other little elements that I thought would be fun to add. Some nature, a little bit of these dry pieces. And if you use things from outside, you know, they will change color. They will darken or turn brown. But I do like the idea of adding texture. It gives it a little bit of interest. So you might consider adding those things as well, and I think I will. And I'm going to use a little Elmer's glue. And the garden is finished. You may want to give it a special title. Maybe that represents your family all together. Maybe there's a word that comes to mind. Mine looks like it's full of life, that it's growing. So it might be growing together. But there's also wildness about my garden. Maybe wild and free family. That's up to you. Oh, so there is a family garden that I put together today. I think who came up today were my brothers, and I think I would go with the mountains for my grandparents, the bird, and maybe even the little chipmunk as my parents. Yeah, so I would love to hear about how you created your collage, and I'd love to see the work that you did, and I would love to know what your family portraits mean. You can email me at programs@projectcreatedc.org. programs@projectcreatedc.org. Thank you so much. I will see you again soon. Bye.